Okay, class, welcome back to Gump 10. Today we're doing our last lesson in this first chapter, working with unit pricing and market up and discounts. The last lesson today is on currency exchange. Um, some people will be traveling at one point in their life. If you go outside of this country, then you're going to need that country's money. If you travel to the States, they're not going to take your Canadian money. They're going to want American dollars. If you buy things from Europe or other parts of the world, they want to be paid in their currency, not in Canadian money. And if you travel on a holiday, you should get money exchanged. Now, sometimes if you go on a holiday, you don't spend all of that money. So when you come back, you have some of their dollars. You have some of their rupees. You have some of their lira, whatever the country's money is, and you want to get the exchange because it's not, you can't spend it in Canada, so you need to change it back. So this is about how do you exchange the money. So what kind of things do you know at home that you don't buy here in Canada? What's not made here in Canada? A lot of stuff. A lot of your clothes. Where do you think most of it's made? Bangladesh, China, that's true. In fact, some cases, things like our forest. Our biggest industries in Canada are forestry, fishery, and mining. And you think with all the forests we have in Canada, what do you need to cut down the trees? Yeah, it's called a chainsaw. And Canada doesn't make one. Husqvarnas and Stills, they're made in other countries. They're made in Sweden. Our cars that are made here are American cars. Okay. Toyota, the Japanese, Honda, the American, the cars that they have up in Ontario, they're American cars. And President Trump has just changed the law so that anything made in Canada, it's going to be charged tariffs when they go across the border. Yeah, everything on aluminum and steel. What kind of vitamins do Canadians sell to other countries? Well, what do we make here that other countries want, other than cars? Because we can put down cars, because cars are manufactured up in Ontario, but they're generally American companies like General Motors and Ford, or they're like what? What kind of food specifically that Canadians have that other countries want? Maple syrup, that's the most common one, right? Yeah, like Ganon's down in southern New Brunswick, St. Stephen, we have our own chocolate factory there. That's good, yeah. Certain what? Cigarettes. Well, they grow tobacco in southern Ontario, that's true. So they do have processing plants in Canada. That's true. You can put down tobacco too. So those are just a couple examples. Now, what would influence a person's currency? What makes our money worth anything? And we're going to look at that in a second. And what do I need to exchange Canadian dollars to foreign money? Where can I exchange the money if I want to? If I want to buy American dollars, where do I get it? And how can I find out what a Canadian dollar is worth? Because it doesn't stay the same every day. It changes. And there's a way we can calculate it. So I got through a few examples here. So some of the items that are not made in Canada. What happens when we buy things for like cameras or televisions, the people like Walmart, the people like what's the other stores we go to, Staples and that, they have a lot of our technology, a lot of the computers and stuff, but they're not made here. They're made over in Japan, or they're made in Germany, or they're made in Korea. When they buy them, they have to pay them in their money. They can't give them Canadian dollars. So they'll pay Japanese in Japanese money for those televisions, for those computers. If they're selling us, it's the same thing. If they want to sell stuff to us, and we want to pay them over here for our maple syrup, we want to be paid Canadian dollars. Okay, so this is where we have to know about what the money is worth. What influences the value? Well, the first thing is its political economic situation. Right here in Canada, the United States, we're very stable. We don't have to worry about a dictator taking over here. But if you were to live in Cuba, if you're living in Korea, you're under dictatorship there. If you fall asleep while he's talking, he has you shot. Those are the rules over there. In some countries, like in Africa, depending on who's running the country, you could start a business there, but then the government comes in and says, I'm taking it over. And there's nothing you can do about it. So that's politically unstable. It makes their money not worth very much. Nobody wants to go there, like in the Congo, where they have blood diamonds and stuff. Employment rates. We have a lot of people working here. But in some countries, there's no jobs. So their money's not worth much because the employment rates are very, very low. Interest rates. That's how much it costs to borrow money. And changes in supply and demand. Does anybody want? When you're traveling, what currency most people take with them? It's not Canadian money, it's American money. If you're traveling all through Europe or Caribbean, they love to have American currency because it's worth more than most other money in the world. So here's something that we look at. There's a table. And if you look at here, a US dollar, if you have $1 Canadian, and this is back in last year in February, it's only worth 76 cents. Okay? So if I were to use a Canadian dollar, say I went down across the border and I want to buy something and they don't say it's not at par. Par means it's the same. It means that it's only worth 76 cents. And if I were to buy American dollar, it's going to cost me $1.31. One American dollar will cost me $1.31 Canadian. And here's all these different countries. The euro, which is what they use over in Europe, like in countries like France and Holland, Italy, and Spain. The British pound is becoming unique now. Britain was part of Europe, but they've got a new program. They're leaving it, so they've got to have their own money. Indian rupee, the Australian dollar, Singapore dollar, Swiss franc, Malaysian ringgit, Japanese yen, and the Chinese yuan. These are just some examples of what the money is worth. So if I were to buy something like here, the Singapore dollar, our money is worth a little bit more. It would only cost me 92 cents. If I were to buy one Japanese yen, it's only 1 cent. So it doesn't cost very much. How do I know how to do that? Well, most banks, if you go online with your computer, you can type into almost any bank and they all have an online converter. This one here is the Royal Bank. So I was going to screw up the, let's see what, it's not a video, it's just a picture. There, okay. So let's say I have $100 Canadian. I want to change it to American dollars. Well, today, it's only worth $76.39. I'm going to get 76 American dollars. I'm not going to get $100. My $100 Canadian is only worth 76. So I can put in any amount in here. And I could change that to whatever country I want. So I can go into, say, euros. Say I have 100 euros. It's $110. So the American dollar is worth more. So that's the online converter. You just would have to type in like Royal Bank for a currency converter, and it would give you an easy way of converting from one to the other. So before you go on the trip, if you want to know how much money is going to cost you, you want to take money with you to the States, how much it's going to cost from the bank, you put it into this little formula. Just that one. Okay, so there are charts that show you how much each dollar is going to be worth all over the world. And I've got about 70 some countries there, depending on where you have to visit. So a 1 Canadian dollar here would cost me, to buy €1, it would cost me $1.40. And over here, like I said, to buy $1 American would cost me $1.31. Now, the banks, they work a different way. Most of the time when you buy currency, you have to go to a bank. You can't do it online. You can't go to an ATM. Okay? If you went to an ATM in that country, you might get their money. But if I were to travel down the States, I have to go to the local bank here and say, I want $100 American. Now, what's the bank going to do? If you want to buy it, what the bank is going to sell it to you. So you have to look at the bank sell rate. So if I'm going to buy $1 American, it's going to cost me $1.34. Now, let's say I come back from the States and I got extra money. I want to change it back to Canadian. They're not going to give me $1.34. They're only going to give me $1.26. Why do they do that? It's because they have to make money. They're the ones that are ordering it. They're the ones that are keeping it in the vault. So they want you to pay for their services. So you always will pay more to get the money than when you sell it back, you get less. You could do it the same day. I could walk right down here to the Bank of Montreal and buy $100 American, and it cost me $134. I walk out the door and I say, I don't want to go to the States. Walk right back in. Say, okay, here's my $100 American. Give me back Canadian. They're only going to give me $1.26. So here's an example. Say you're going on a trip. You're going to Mexico on the March break. The teacher tells you to bring along approximately 1,000 pesos. That's the money that they use in Mexico. How much does that cost you in Canadian dollars? Well, we know now how to set up ratios. We need to know what $1 Canadian is worth in exchange rate. So if I go up here, it says that 6 is going to cost me, they're going to sell it to me for 6 cents, 0.683. That's what it's going to cost me Canadian for 1 peso. Okay? A peso's not worth very much. Mexico's a lot poorer country. So if I have this ratio, and they want to know how much money it's going to cost me to get 1,000, so basically how much Canadian is it going to be for 1,000 pesos? You can set up 2 proportional statements like that. We've been doing this before. So now we can set it up as a statement here. So I can take 1 peso over $0.0683 equals how many pesos I'm going to buy? 1,000. Always remember you have to have the same units at the top. If I have pesos on the top, I've got to keep it on both sides. Over, and this time I want to know how much Canadian dollars I'm going to get for that. It's pesos, Canadian dollars. And then you would cross multiply. So I have 1 times x, so that's x, equals 1,000 times and when I multiply that, I'm going to have 1, 2. So how much is going to cost me to buy 1,000 pesos? It's going to cost me $68.30 Canadian. Okay. Another example, you're going to Denmark. They use kroner as their money, kroners. It says how much money you receive for $500 Canadian. Well, again, I have to buy kroners. I have to buy it. So that means the bank is going to sell it to me. So I put down that ratio. It's going to be $1 or 1 kroner. It's going to cost me almost 20 cents. 1 kroner is equal to I want to know how much I'm going to get for $500. So 1K I don't know how many kroner I get, but I have $500 Canadian. So I got kroner on the top, dollars on the bottom. Now I cross multiply. That's x times 0.198, so 0.1978 x equals 1 times 500. So in order to find out what x is going to be, I have to get rid of this. So it means I have to divide. I have to do the same thing over here. Same things will cancel out. Then I go to my calculator. Should be a pretty big number. 2,527.80. So I'm going to get almost over 2,500 kroner for $500 Canadian. So when I go to Denmark, I can buy stuff with their money, and it'll be about $500 worth Canadian that I have with me. And the last one I'm going to show you is Arnold, maybe Schwarzenegger, is making a movie in Hong Kong. His travel allowance, how much he's taking with him for spending money, is $3,000 Canadian. How much money will he have in the local currency for his expenses in Hong Kong? So I go back here, I look for Hong Kong, I have to buy the money. That's what it's going to cost me for every Hong Kong dollar is 0.1817. So again, I just set up that ratio. 1 Hong Kong dollar is equal to Canadian. And then set up the fraction. You notice I put the symbols there so I don't get confused on which is which. Now, they tell me I got 3,000 Canadian. Well, because I got Canadian on the bottom, I put this on the bottom. And I need to know how many Hong Kong dollars I'm going to get. So that goes on the top, Hong Kong, Hong Kong. And again, just cross multiply. That's going to be 0.1817 HK equals 3,000 times 1, which is 3,000. And then divide both sides. These cancel out. So my number is going to be 3,000 divided by that. So I'm going to get 16,510 Hong Kong dollars. Now probably they're going to give you in big bills. When you have countries like that their money's not worth much. I remember going through Italy and lira. It took around 700 lira to make 1 Canadian dollar. So when I went into a local store and bought a bag of chips or a soft drink, I would give them something like a 1,000 lira note, like a bill. It said 1,000 lira or 5,000. Because their money wasn't worth very much, they wouldn't give me any change. They didn't have coins. Could you imagine if it took 700 lira from $1, then the change is worth almost nothing. So if I had change left, they'd say, oh, here, help yourself to the candy. Take your change in Canada. So even countries like India, you could go there and pay a couple of 100,000 rupees for a car. Here it might cost 40,000, but over there it could be maybe 500,000 rupee. So that's why it's good to know how much money to take with you. So that's it. I'm going to give you one sheet here to practice these skills. And here you can see the question is you're given $500 Canadian. You don't have to use cents. You can round to the nearest unit. So bring it to the nearest unit. I want you to find out how much yen you're going to get if 1 Canadian dollar is worth 95. So that's your ratio. This is Canada. Canada is $1 and it's worth 95 yen. How many yen would you get for $500? Same thing here. $1 is worth 1.41 Turkish lira. How many lira would you get? $1 is worth this many euro. How many euro would you get? So there's 5 examples I want you to practice with. And that's it.